Hello and welcome to We Are Human. I'm Andrea. This is my partner in crime, Susan Leonardson, and we are just so happy that you're here in all of your beautiful humanness. On this episode, I have to be a little bit honest on this one. I'm kind of nervous for this episode because of all the parts of our framework that we dive into. This is by far going to be the most frustrating one because it is more about your own healing journey as a human than anything else, which you're like, what does that have to do with AI? But we're going to dive into it. Susan, yeah, go ahead. Anything to add on this particular one before we dive in?
Yeah, I'll just quickly make note that if you're just joining us for the first time on this episode, this is framework number 2 that we talked about I wish I looked up the episode number. I think it's episode 4, where we did an overview of the frameworks that we're using in our business to help our clients make their businesses more human-centered, even while we're using AI and tech and automations, what we're doing to still be able to connect with the humans. And bonus, it's not just about that. It also makes your business more successful, gives your clients better results, gets you more money, and all those things. So if you want the full overview of what we're talking about today, episode 4. And so today we're diving into compassionate reach.
And before we go into what is compassionate reach, you might be asking, especially if you're a hyperlogical person or more of an analytical person, you might be asking, or even more of a business high achieving person, you might be asking, how does this help me? Why would I do this? So let me give you the logical argument of why you should listen to this. So in most businesses, we know that there is a distribution of the population of people who are really good to get into your program. So in that, right, there's think of a bell curve, the classic bell curve. And on the very left side of the bell curve is like 2% of the population that they're just never going to do anything. Like they're not there yet. They're not motivated yet. They're just not there. They're not in a place to move. Then on the far right side of the bell curve, you have usually probably if you're listening to this podcast, the likelihood of you being in most of your life on this percentage of the bell curve is pretty high. And this is like the 1 to 2% of people who we call the high achievers. Now, it does not mean you're a high achiever in all aspects of your life. So before you get crazy with the ego, but it does mean that probably in some aspect or multiple aspects of your life, you are a high achiever. You don't need a lot to get started. You're pretty self-starter. You achieve and accomplish and have success higher than the average person in the population. And then in the center of the bell curve, you have basically the like 95% of the majority of the population is all inside of the bell curve, that has varying degrees of achievement orientation and the ability to do what they need to do. What we find is that in most programs and most businesses, you create products and services that are really geared towards that high achieving 1 to 2% of the population because they're you. You build it for people who are like you. But if you were just to even dip 16% deeper into the majority of the population on that bell curve, what that would do for your business in terms of total number of buyers and people that you serve is substantial. And in order to do that, this framework, compassionate reach, is a must. You will not be able to penetrate into that 6% if you do not do this part. So if you've heard nothing else from today, that is the reason why this one is so important. If you want to increase your total market share that you can sell to and that you can serve, this episode is going to help you.
I think I said it in that overview episode, and I'll say it again, is that if you've ever noticed that your customers that you're bringing in to your program, you have the ones that just log in, they do the thing, they're really low maintenance, they're your star students. You're like, I wish I could find more of them. And then you have the other customers where they're asking questions all the time, they're having trouble logging in, they're always coming to customer support. They need extra time on your support calls. They feel like they're higher maintenance, and you're like, this is just giving you a lot of time. I'm doing a lot of hand holding, and I wish I could just find more of the other people. That is what we're talking about. The reason it feels that way is because it's designed for the 2% they're just going to figure it out. They're going to be resourceful. They're going to trust their instincts and their intuition, and they're going to just do it and make the mistake and not overthink things. And they're just going to do it. Right. And then there's the other group of people. And so what we're going to talk about today is to minimize or lessen the amount that the other group of people feel like they're the wrong people. Like they're not the wrong people. They're just the experience isn't designed for them. And so a lot of clients think that they need a higher quality customer, that they have a quality problem in who they're bringing in. And it's not true. They've raised their hand. They said that they're your person. They said that they have the problem that you're solving. They trust that you can solve it, but they're not going through it. They're not getting the result. And it's the experience. It's all the experience.
Mhm. Yep, it's all experience. Yep. Um, so I was reminded of this lately actually because even despite all of my amazing work that I've done personally, no, I'm just kidding. But despite that, it is an always journey of reminding like, okay, passion is it. So we recently deployed a membership area to they have a total list of like 300,000 people, but it has like 20,000 members right now, and the average age of the member is a 75-year-old and predominantly women. And we were doing a focus group, and I was, listening to some of the customers, and I caught myself actually in the I'm not being compassionate loop, and I kind of had to reflect. So what they were saying is they were you would imagine what you would imagine. So average age 75, they were really struggling with some of the technology. Like I don't understand how to log in, or I don't even how to switch contacts, like if I'm on my phone, how you do like the double click and you can like switch screens, right? Like that was a like I don't know how to do that. Or like I don't understand like what a magic link is, you know what I mean? Or like, how do I, why do I have to log in? Or how do I get to this place? Like, there was a lot of like tech barrier kind of things, right? And tech anxiety. And I'm so scared I'm going to mess it up, right? And okay, so on all accounts, as I'm sitting there, I'm like trying to go through and be like, well, that's easy. Or we could just do it this way. Or like, oh, we could just make this design fix, right? And I caught myself and I'm like, oh, I'm not going to be able to come up with a solution from this place of just cognitively trying to understand their experience. I have to be able to reach into some place of compassion in order to get innovation and to find the solution. And so the only way I'm able to do that, because I cannot relate to not understanding technology, that is that because it is not a problem I have. What I had to do is I had to go to the place in my life where I feel that same level of inadequacy, which usually is in my health journey. I'm like, yep, I feel inadequate. I don't have confidence. I don't know how to do it. I feel like a failure. I feel like even when I try, it's not going to yield the effort. And I was like, okay. So I really got into the feels and I'm like, oh, yeah, this sucks for them. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, some innovation started happening. But it was only when I could actually experience compassion in a place where I was equally inept that then I could tap into a potential design solution, which really cool. We actually came up with some ones and we're getting some increase in adoption, which is awesome. But you have to be able, there's a saying, Susan and I were just talking about it before the episode. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, Susan. And that is, that saying of, you can only love someone as much as you love yourself. I think you can only be compassionate to your user to the degree to which you can be compassionate for yourself and see where you are flawed and inadequate and not worthy and feel shame or less than or unworthiness. These are the places that make you equal to the customer's experience and able to tap into that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it makes me think of my journey as a parent. I loved your example of you having to tap into something totally different where you felt similar feelings to what those customers were feeling. And I have to in my situation, my example, it's when you're raising kids and they're going through things or they're acting a certain way and
Mm,
you get frustrated. Like me, I'll speak to myself. I get frustrated when there's too much shenanigans going on, but I've gotten really good about remembering when what was my mindset when I was their age.
yeah.
What I have wanted my parents to do or react. How would they react? And I think that's a similar like I'm reaching into my
Yeah.
younger self, my past self to tap into
Mhm.
that compassion to have with my kids now.
Yeah.
Because as adults we forget what it was like to be a kid sometimes and that really helps. So yeah,
Yeah.
being able to tap in that way.
Yeah, definitely. And especially tapping into that kid brain where it's like you do have less power, you do have less knowledge, you don't know what you don't know. You probably think you're invincible, you don't realize your social surroundings all the time. Yeah, absolutely.
The other thing is kind of same our past self is at some point in your life you didn't have the knowledge that you have. At some
Yes.
point in your life you didn't have all the tech know-how and there was a learning curve or something. We've had some people come into our business and our world where yeah, we get a little bit or annoyed because we're like, "I've showed this to you like 5 times. Why don't you get it?" And it is just understanding, okay, their brain works differently than mine. Also, I probably had to see it 5 times before I got it the first time, and I
Mhm.
just have that experience under my belt, which is kind of another thought just came to my mind, and then you can keep going. I think you call this the plight of the expert, where we are an expert in something and we forget what it took for us to become an expert in that thing. And so often when we are trying to teach that to others, which a lot of people listening probably do because we talk a lot about digital courses and programs, when you turn around and you start teaching that to someone, sometimes you forget what was necessary and what was needed and the repetition that was required for you to acquire that skill set. And we forget that when we're turning around and teaching it. We think we hear this a lot. We say, in our marketing. I did all the hard work and made all the mistakes so you don't have to, which makes this sound really great
Yeah.
and that it's going to be so much easier for them to learn because you went and figured out all the ways not to
Yeah.
do it. But that doesn't mean that they're not going to go through different mistakes and different struggles that you didn't go through because now you're the one teaching them
Yep.
and you may not be teaching them. They probably learned a lot from those mistakes that you made and now they don't get the benefit of that learning experience. So
Mhm.
there's
Yep.
yeah, it's just you can't simplify it that much, and you do have to realize, like, they are not like me, and I need
Yep.
to have that compassion for them and put myself in their shoes.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's that emotional aspect of compassion. There's also from a purely biological standpoint. Let's just talk about what happens to an expert brain versus a novice's brain. So, when an expert brain is learning something that they are familiar with or that it's like knowledge building, their brain actually lights up. Like more parts of their brain when hooked to an EKG lights up to be able to almost be ready to learn and to to manage that content and do something with it. Where a novice's brain, who doesn't have the structure to be able to receive it, and they start to get too much information, their brain literally shuts down. So it's not only just the emotional things that are happening of overwhelm, I'm not good enough, I don't have confidence, I don't believe in myself, I'm not worthy. Biologically, neurologically, there is things happening that also is against them to be able to do the thing because their brain capacity literally is not as high as even a base state for themselves, let alone compared to the expert. So there are two things that are happening biologically or neurologically and emotionally that make sometimes dealing with this stuff really, really hard. We'll do another framework that talks about like how you navigate the neurological aspect of it, but the compassion is all about the emotional aspect of it and just really having compassion for how hard it is to learn something that you so desperately want in your life, but it just doesn't come easy to you. It just is going to take a little extra effort and it's going to take a little bit of extra time. Now, okay, so I think anybody at this point in the episode, Susan, would maybe be in 2 camps. The first camp is like, "Well, of course. Yes, that makes sense. I have to be compassionate to them. Okay, but how?" And then the other person that might be listening is like, "I do not I just gotta get the right person because like, I can think of my worst customer, and the concept of trying to be compassionate to them just feels like a soul suck of my life." You know what I mean? And, like, I don't wanna do that, like, that is not worth it. And so I wanna dive a little bit deeper in especially when we talk about humans and being able to leverage technology for maybe where you aren't able to tap into compassion, but maybe you can use the system to help you tap into compassion. Like, why is tapping into compassion so hard sometimes for people? And I know you and I both have our own examples and we can and I wanna go into that, but I think the best work that I've seen so far on this concept of compassion is with Brené Brown. In her atlas, of the heart, she dives really deep into certain emotions, and she, in her research, has this really great finding where she says, "It's hard to practice compassion when you're struggling with your own authenticity and when your own worthiness is off balance." And What I translate that to is that basically when we're rejecting the parts of ourself where we do feel worthless and we aren't as good and we don't wanna recognize where we feel inadequate, we basically aren't able to accept that or work with that in others. And so it really is knowing your own limitations and knowing where you can and cannot tap into compassion for the people that you serve. And your product and service will be limited to the degree to which you cannot tap into compassion. Okay, let me pause
Mhm,
there. Does that make sense, Susan, to you,
mhm.
or does it resonate?
It does. It definitely does. I'm thinking to moments, both business and personal, of when it's just, I think in today's language, we use the word trigger a lot. Like,
Mhm.
that's a really triggering thing for me. And it's just something I'm personally working on. And it's hard to be compassionate in those moments. And so I think you're right, first of all, in when you mentioned this is a very like doing the personal work type of episode, but also it's empowering, for lack of a better word right now, to know what you can be compassionate with and what you cannot. Because we often, you and I tag team a lot in situations where we know, like, hey, this particular client, like, I think you need to go have this conversation with them because I think you're going to be better suited for it. And then another situation, it's like, hey, I'm gonna, I'll take that one, and
Mhm.
because we have done so much together that we know each other well enough and we know ourselves well enough to know when things are going to be hard for us to be compassionate or empathetic or whatever. And so it definitely helps. Also helps, by the way, to just have somebody like a business partner that can tap in and do it for you.
What is happening? Yeah, exactly. I don't got it. I don't got it in me. Good tag. You're it. You're in.
I've tried. You take this one.
Yeah. And I think and I wanna harp on this too, and it is compassion is not just being able to intellectually recognize that someone is having a hard time and trying to help them. That is not what compassion is. Compassion is seeing them as an equal in the struggle of the experience of struggle, because
Mhm,
it is a universal human experience to feel struggle. And if you can't feel it, then basically it's going to come off as condescending or as being managed or dismissive.
mhm.
And no amount of beautiful empathetic language is gonna hide that energetic feeling. Like someone will feel it. If you don't actually understand struggle like on an emotional level and you try to relate, they will feel it.
Yeah, it's kind of like you are aligning with them. You are
Yeah.
aligning with them, and that thing, that injustice, that whatever it is,
Mhm.
happened to both of you. Like, their problem is now your problem.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you're not necessarily, it's not passing the blame off to someone or something, but it's like, yeah, you're right. That is what happened to you, which means it happened to me, and I'm going to approach this problem in a way that it happened to me.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
and kind of like what you were saying earlier, Andrea, of you were only able to problem solve for the group of customers, for the client, after you tapped into your own compassionate story where you were needing to feel those emotions. And while you weren't really able to be empathetic to them and their situation, you were able to find a similar place to go so you could be one with them in their
Yeah.
emotion.
Yeah. And so now I want to turn to like, what does that tactically mean? Okay. So I'm able to tap into the emotion of compassion. You are too, Susan, right? Of like, yeah, I know when I feel inadequate. Now I cannot relate to you not being able to log into a piece of technology. Cannot relate because that is like my world every day, 24/7. But I can relate to walking in to a gym and feeling completely incompetent. And so what does that actually mean on a tactical level, right? What that means, I think, in twofold is one, and this is where I'm gonna turn it over to you, Susan, is the messaging and the language that we use on the page, on emails, in text messaging, right? Like, how does that shift our language in meeting them where they're at to have compassionate reach to them? Yeah, I would
Mhm.
love for you to talk about some of the work you're doing in those nurture stuff.
Yeah, it's a bit of a balance, and it definitely depends on your avatar, your client base, because I'm thinking of a couple. So,
Yeah,
the language general I'll do, like, generally. The
yeah,
rules are generally don't shame, don't make them feel bad about them, don't make them feel more inadequate, right? We don't want that because that just is like a deep spiral of they're not gonna want to do the thing. But also some audiences respond well to a little bit of tough love. So there's
yeah,
a like you gotta know your audience.
yeah,
There's one client like we would never use oh, it's so funny because I'm about to say these words, but I think it's not true. So there's one client in particular that we have, and I think I'm just gonna talk about it freely.
yeah.
I won't name the client just for whatever, but they have it's the group of the 75-year-old
Yes,
plus women
yes.
and in their language of emails and stuff that they send out to people for, "Hey, you haven't logged in yet. You haven't done this thing yet." They have this little character named Ivan, and he's this little Russian character, and their language towards these women are, "Hey, if you don't do this thing today, Ivan's gonna be really mad at you." And it is a little bit, a little bit more on the shame side, but it's I don't know, for whatever reason, it somehow works. I
I've
don't
actually
know.
been thinking about it a lot. I think I
Yeah.
have a theory as to why it works.
Okay, I wanna hear it.
Okay, okay. I think the theory, because I am with you, Susan. When I first saw that technique, I was like, "Ooh, that is really shaming." But then I heard in focus groups, like them talking about it, like, "I don't want Ivan to be mad at me," right? So I think what it's doing is instead of me focusing on like my inadequacies and being lost in my own head
Mhm.
of like not being able to log in, not being able to figure out the tech, right? I've now like removed that focus and now I'm focused on a relational aspect of I don't want Ivan to be mad at me. It's kind of similar to like if I go to the gym and I have a personal trainer, right? And if I
Don't
don't
want
show up
them
to the
to be mad.
gym, they're going to be mad at me, right? So now I'm not focused on all of my own woes, you know what I mean? Like I'm never going to lose weight and
Yeah.
nothing works. I've tried everything, right? Instead, I'm like I don't want to take off my instructor, you know what I mean? And I
Yeah,
think that that's why it works.
I
Is
think
like
you're
it
right.
shifts the focus. Yeah.
There's an important distinction here because a minute ago, I think there's a difference between so maybe a little bit of shame is okay. We all
Yeah.
feel, I mean, that's motivating to some people. That's what accountability partners are, right? You don't want to
Sure.
disappoint the other person. And so maybe when it's used in that light, but that's not exactly what you said, Andrea, of it's not pointing a spotlight on their inadequacies. It's
Yeah.
redirecting that energy towards, I don't want to, it's an accountability tool.
Yeah.
And so I think that's the difference. Because the other example that I have is there's another client where we have these same similar style emails that they get sent out when people aren't doing the thing, they're not where they should be in the program. And it also is a little bit that way where it's not making the customer feel bad about themselves. It is more of the accountability side of like one of the messages in the email, this is like 5 emails in and the person still hasn't logged in. Like they're clearly not doing the thing.
Yeah.
And it says, okay, I think the subject line is, uh, I'm not mad, I'm disappointed.
Yeah.
And then the email subject or the email copy says something along the lines of like, or if you don't take action after this, I'm gonna have to put you in my list of course collectors, and I don't want to have to do that, you know. And it's not about their inadequacy to go and do the work. It's just about like they're not putting the effort in. You know, it's not pointing out like you really suck at doing this skill. It's you haven't even given it any effort yet. Like go do it. What are you waiting for? It's the accountability part of it. And I think that we just made a really good distinction there
Yeah.
because like why are these working?
Yeah. And it's accountability
Yeah.
with humor. So I think that's why we negate the shame part. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, oh,
There's
yeah,
humor
epiphany. Yeah.
in
It's
both
a
situations. It's
combination.
delivered with humor. Yeah.
Yeah. A combination of like accountability with humor negates the shame of inadequacy.
Yeah, yeah. We don't
Yeah.
wanna make them feel bad about them because there's this Andrew, maybe you can help me out with her name, Doctor something. She talks about frustrate like, when you are in the learning. Yeah.
I know exactly who you're talking
But
about.
when you're in the learning phase of something, you are in like, you will feel frustration, and anytime you're
Yeah.
learning anything So, yeah, I can't think of what her name is, but there's this video clip
Yes.
and yeah, people
Dr.
get
Becky's.
frustrated when they're learning. Dr. Becky,
Dr.
thank you.
Becky at Duke. Yep.
Yeah.
Yes.
You get
Yes.
frustrated when you're learning something new. And so that's an emotion. That's something that you could be compassionate toward, is knowing you're asking people to learn something new.
Yeah.
And whether it is learning how to log into something that they've never logged into, or it's a skill that you're trying to teach them. And we are always in frustration. And frustration isn't a bad thing. It's a signal to our own selves that we are learning something new. And so
Mhm.
being compassionate towards that. I don't know where I was going with that, but yeah, the emails, it's delivered with that understanding of, we got to nudge them, we got to get them to
Mhm.
take action, and it can't be all we noticed you didn't log in, just checking if you're okay, like really soft language. Hey,
Right.
you still haven't, it's been a month and you still haven't done anything. Like,
Right.
you want to try today? Like, that's not going to be very effective for very many people and for very long. And so we do have to get a little creative with putting on some extra pressure. But I'm so glad that we talked about this today, because it is clear that it's accountability pressure,
Yeah.
not, hey, you should feel stupid because you didn't do this thing and
Yeah.
you're really sucking at life right now. Like, that's not the
Yeah.
energy we want.
Yes,
Um, so,
exactly.
yeah.
I think too in that, and this is a really subtle, but I think sometimes people try to act like they are compassionate through cheerleading. That also is
Yeah.
not compassion. Compassion is not okay, I'm gonna totally go off tangent right now, but the little bit I do know, it's so funny when I talk about parenting because I really have no business talking about parenting because I'm not actually a parent, but based
You're
on
you're
research
an observer of parenting.
okay, based on my observation of parenting, they say that there's 3 possible responses that a parent can give when a child is in an emotional crisis, and only one of them is the right answer. So the first option is child comes to you and it's like, "I'm so sad, my best friend is moving away," and they're just in hysteria, right? And the parent responds, "Stop your crying and I'll give you something to cry about," right? Okay, we all know that that is not compassion, right? And that is not good parenting. But it could happen. Okay. Second approach is the child comes to you and is like, "I'm so sad. My best friend is moving away and I don't know what to do." And the parent comes up and gives them the most loving embrace and just, "I'm so sorry that that's happening to you and everything's going to be fine. You're fine. You don't need to worry." Right. But again, that actually is not compassion. That is equivalent to us cheerleading. "You can do it. You're fine. No worries. You got this." Right. It actually truncates the emotion, which is a blocker for progress. The best option from a parenting perspective would be your child comes to you and is like, "I'm so sad. My friend's moving away." And you can put a hand on a shoulder or put your arm around them, but it's not it's going to be fine because it's not in their world. And it's not stop whining about it because you can't do anything about it, right? It's just simply feel the feels, let them pass because emotions always have it in life. So, like, feel the feels, be in the state for a little while. I'm here when you need a little extra push. And I think what you're saying in those emails, Susan, is exactly that. It's like, "Hey, we recognize you're going through a hard time and we know that you gave us money to hold you accountable. So I'm just going to let you know we're here. We're going to say, hey, maybe think about it this other way or, consider this." But it's not a you have to go do it now, grin and bear it. You know what I mean? Like, hoorah. It's none of that crap. It's just
Yeah.
simply a gentle encouragement back into feel the feels and come back.
Yeah. And it's a lot of reminding. I'm gonna go back to, was it our last episode where, yeah, we were talking about second sales.
Yeah.
And it really is that. It is, got them to buy with their money. They're
Mhm.
now running into friction, whatever that friction is.
Mhm.
And the progress has stopped or slowed down a lot, and that's when they're getting these emails that we're kind of talking about right now. And it's reminding that you're still in sales mode. You
Mhm.
Even though they've already paid, they already bought the thing, you are still needing to continue to sell them on the result that they wanted. You sold them on the vision and the promise of the result. Now you're actually selling them on actually doing the stuff to get to the result.
Mhm.
And the language is a lot of the marketing copy that goes, it's marketing copy. I actually just kind of spilled the beans. A lot of the copy that goes into those emails post buying, post purchase, is still marketing and sales copy. It
Yeah.
is reminding them about the problem that they're trying to solve. Why did you buy this thing? Remember how you felt when you pulled out your wallet and you paid that money and said you wanted to solve this problem? Well, if you
Mhm.
were serious about that, you should probably log in today. Do lesson one. And it's reminding them about their vision. And hey, remember when you said you wanted this thing to happen in your life, it's not going to happen if you don't start doing something, It's
Mm.
those kind of reminders. We're constantly selling them back on the same thing we already sold them. That's where a lot of people run into trouble with getting people to have good results and retention and ascension at the post purchases of their programs, is that they think that the sale ended as soon as they collected the money, and that's not true. It actually doesn't end. It doesn't end until you've sold them the next thing, and then on that next thing you're still selling them on the thing that they just bought. And
Mhm.
we should never just say, cool, you got in, here's the login, good luck,
Mhm.
and I'm here if you need me. Like, that's not
Yeah.
that's not one, a great experience, and it's not two, how we serve compassionately.
Mhm. Yeah. I think the last piece that I wanna say on this compassionate reach and is actually to the creator of the programs, and that is a compassion towards playing that's not the right way to say that. Choosing to show compassionate reach for more than just the high achievers is not easy, because what it will ask of you is to relook at the way that you are presenting your information, to break it down even more, to slow down to a painful place that you don't want to slow down to. It will require, if you don't want to be there actually with the personal compassionate part, it will require an investment in the system being able to be compassionate on your behalf. So I do think it requires for the entrepreneur to kind of remove themselves from like the perfect, like, I know this is the best way to teach it, or I know this is the only way to go. This is what they have to do. And kind of just allowing yourself to be like, okay, let me listen to my customers, for not everyone. Just we're really talking about like the 16% right after the high achievers, right? Like we're not talking about like the ones who are just aren't ready to change, or like their stuff is not what you can solve, right? Like their issues are way more like they need a counselor, not a coach, right? But like we're just talking about the 16% of people that if you just show them a little compassionate, the reward for your business and yourself will be substantial. It is you having to maybe refactor tools, slow down, allow, be patient, or invest in a system that can do that for you. And that is not always easy, but it is worth it. It is 100% of the time worth it. Mm.
It is. We see it time and time again with our clients where they're really excited. They're like, yes, I need this. And then we get into the project. And of course, it's the same thing that we talked about in the last episode of like, when we sell somebody something, we don't make it sound like a whole lot of work, but then we get in and it's not like a bait and switch thing. It's like everybody knows that it requires work, right?
Yeah.
We get into it and then, yes, there's some rework that has to be done. And it's not a ton of work. It's often we're just repurposing and things and moving some stuff around to make a better experience. But then they see the results and it's like, okay, yes, now they thought they were getting one thing, and then the results and all of the extra benefits that come from it is, I think there's a moment when they realize that this isn't just, I'm not just fixing the delivery
Yeah.
of my program. I
Yeah.
actually am creating longevity in my business right now.
Yes. Yes.
There's a
Yes.
moment. You can see it. You can see it with every client. There's this
Yeah.
moment where you're like, it just clicked for them. Yep. This is
Yep.
not just you're trying to, keep people from canceling their membership. You are building a real long-term sustainable asset in your business by slowing down and taking the time to do it right. Because we see entrepreneurs, digital course creators out there all the time. They're constantly pivoting, making new products, doing new launches because they don't know how to fix these things. And they say, well, it's going to last as long as it lasts and it has a shelf life. And when it's done, I'm going to move on to the next thing. And it's only done and it has a shelf life because they don't actually take the time to fix their delivery problem.
Yeah.
It would have a longer shelf life if they did more with it
Yeah.
and didn't
So
treat it
true.
as just something to sell.
Yeah, so true. Yeah. And again, I think the thing I love the most about this is, you know, the whole premise of the show is in this technology driven world, when we are having technology mediated conversations, and the medium through which we talk is technology, and technology is just at the forefront of everything, that compassion is an innately human ability, and compassion needs to be, and that innately human compassion can be baked into technology and the use of technology and the output you get from technology. But it requires that you actually have to feel it as a human first. It's not just a cognitive thing. It's not just a mirroring or a repeating back or a validating, right? It is, you have to feel it in order for it to come through in the technology. It kind of reminds me a little bit, Susan, of, so I'm a total foodie, and I used to have a practice of going to Michelin star restaurants. I haven't done that in a long time just because I'm not there in my life. But there's this saying in the culinary arts, and that is that the art and the craft that the chef bakes into the dish, you feel it when you eat it. And I 100% believe that to be true. I think it's same when we're building and designing technology solutions. The compassion that you feel as you're designing it, your customers will feel when they interact with it on the other end. I've seen it time and time again. It, to me, it's indisputable. Yeah.
That's well said. And I think that's true in the when we do have our clients start to approach it that way, that's what's generating the excitement and the buzz is because now everyone, them, their customers, they can feel the extra care and love and attention that got put into the experience that they're going through. And it sets it apart in a, hey, my thing looks different than everybody else's kind of way, but it sets it apart on the literal experience and emotion that you have going through programs that design with intention and use journey crafting and use all the pieces of the frameworks that we're diving into in these episodes. And again, back to my point of like that's the like if your intention is to create something that's gonna have like a 1-year shelf life and you're gonna move on to something else,
Yeah.
don't spend a lot of time doing the things that we're telling you to do because you're gonna just move on to the next thing and it doesn't matter. Like, why are you wasting your time? But
Yeah.
if your intention is to build something that is transformational and will live for a long time and change many people's lives, then you have to do these things. There's no way to get around it. From everything that we have seen, all of the businesses that we've watched rise up and then fail, the owner got burnt out and they had to shut it down because they were trying to solve problems with humans, with themselves and with humans, and it was too much. And that's why we get to leverage tech. We get to leverage the tech, but you have to do it in the right way.
Yep. So well said. So well said. Yeah. So I think parting words are essentially the invitation of the show is start to understand where you are less than, where you feel less than, where you feel inadequate, where you feel not good enough, where you feel like you are a rookie and you don't even see a path forward. And if you can tap into that emotion, carry that emotion forward now into your next like customer research group or the feedback you're getting, or go into your help tickets and tap into that emotion as you're reading or as you're hearing the feedback. And what you will be able to create from that space will be 10 times better than anything that you could create if you just listen to it from like a frustrated or cognitive lens.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode.
Yeah.
Like, subscribe, share, do all the things, help us get word out. If you have a recommendation for someone we should bring on to interview that would fit really well into the We Are Human podcast theme, you can go to wearehumanshow.com and there is a nice little form there. Also, you should know, I'm failing. I should have announced this probably a couple episodes ago. You can also go to wearehumanshow.com and there's a watch episodes up at the top. If you want to watch the video versions of these
Oh,
episodes,
yeah.
because sometimes we're putting in images, we'll reference something, we'll reference a graphic or we'll reference something that we're doing and we will put it into the video. So if you want to watch the video versions, you can go there and watch them that way. And that's fun.
Yeah. Yes.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
Okay. With that said, stay human, stay connected.